Markwayne had everyone listening in with this one.
Dang it, I hate getting emotional. See, if I talk about my kids, I get emotional. Other than that, you can't make me cry.
During his confirmation hearing, Markwayne shared a heartfelt story about Trump going out of his way to make sure his injured son was doing well. And the memory hit him so hard that he teared up while telling it. And today, we're covering it all. So if you believe truth isn't partisan, hit the subscribe button and let's jump right into it.
I'd like them to hear a different side of President Trump as well.
Yeah.
But I think also that'll serve you well as his Secretary of Homeland Security. But just tell that story.
Ron, I'm going to try getting through it without crying then. It's not about President Trump, it's about my son. So my son was a really world-class athlete, and January 17th of 2020, which mind you was an election year, he had a really serious brain injury. Woke up 26 hours later and he's a kid. We almost lost him. For 26 hours, he had extremely low pulse. There was a time they thought that they lost his pulse altogether. And when he woke up, he was just different. I mean, here he had a world-class athlete that wrestled all over the world since he was 12 years old, and he couldn't touch his nose. He couldn't walk without shuffling his feet. He had short-term memory loss. He couldn't control his muscles, couldn't add 5 plus 3. He was in high school at that time, had to learn how to read, walk, everything. And the president found out about it, and he gave me a call immediately. And one thing that the president joked about was, like, he said, let me get this straight. He doesn't know who you and Christy are, but he knew who I was, because the only question you got right is who the president was. And he said, Trump, with this cocky grin on his face. And but the president didn't understand the severity of it, but he heard it in my voice, and immediately he went to work. I told him we had to get to Bakersfield, California, to the Center for Neural Skills, which is one of the best neural rehabilitation places in the world. And the president offered to send his plane, his personal plane. This is the president of the United States. And I said, sir, we can't fly, we got to drive. We get there, and he called almost every day for 2 weeks checking on Jim. And then he says, I'm going to come see him. And now this is the middle of the election. This is Bakersfield, California. Really not an area he's got to go campaign. The senator told us that the short-term memory loss something would trigger it. Some big event would eventually trigger where he'd start retaining stuff. Until then, he was still having issues. And the president arrived, and of course there was cameras and everybody around, and of course none of the media ever talked about it, which was funny because the president called him on stage and talked to him. And then we went to the back, and the president didn't talk to me. He didn't know I was in, I mean, he didn't care if I was in the room. Here's a guy that's been over in his tie's about as long as my son, because my son's, it stunted his growth, and so he's 5'3" the rest of his life. And his team came to him twice and said, sir, we got to go, we got to go. On the third time they came over to him, he looked at him and he says, hey, I guarantee you that plane won't leave without me. And for the next 15 minutes, he did nothing but love on my son. That one incident jogged his memory. And from then on, he started retaining things. And Jim's attitude went from this, we're going to get through it, to this, I'm going to get through it. And every week, if not most days, the president would call and ask how he could help. Ask, how's his buddy doing? How's Jim doing? He didn't do it for publicity. He didn't do it for any show. He was running in one of the toughest elections he had been in, and the guy was still that concerned about my son. When we got released a little bit, the president said, come to Mar-a-Lago and see me. We go down there, and it's amazing. And when we're leaving, dang it, I hate getting emotional. See, if I talk about my kids, I get emotional. Other than that, you can't make me cry. But my kids do make me emotional.
That's actually a good thing.
Yeah. So anyways, he grabbed my son and he said, do you know why I love your dad? Do you know why I love your dad? Chrissy tells the story better than I do. And he goes, no, sir. He goes, because he loves you. Because of you. Because of you. Man, he didn't do it for any other reason. I mean, here's the president of the United States, and he did it just because he cared. And so when you want to say why he's a friend, yeah, we were acquaintances before that. We've been friends ever since.
Now, what makes this hit differently is that we rarely hear stories like this about Trump. For almost a decade, most of the coverage surrounding him has been about the latest spat he had with a reporter or scoops based on anonymous sources. Sure, Trump brings plenty of that attention to himself, since he isn't exactly known for avoiding confrontation. But Markwayne isn't describing something that happened at a rally with 20 cameras around at an audience ready to cheer. His son had been badly injured. His family was going through hell. And Trump privately reached out to see what he could do. He even offered his plane if they needed it. We only know about these details because Mullin decided to tell everyone during his confirmation hearing. You don't have to think Trump is some perfect human being to admit that there's a side of him most Americans rarely get to see. And get this, it wasn't the first time either. He offered his aircraft to help a sick child. Back in 1988, 3-year-old Andrew 10 was suffering from a rare breathing illness doctors couldn't properly diagnose, and his family needed to get him from Los Angeles to New York for specialized treatment. There was one massive problem. Commercial airlines wouldn't take him because of all the medical equipment needed to keep him alive during the flight. His family eventually contacted Trump, and he sent his private Boeing 727. Andrew, his parents, and the medical personnel caring for him were flown across the country so the kid could get the treatment. Now, keep in mind, this happened nearly 30 years before Trump entered the White House. No presidential campaign, no MAGA movement, and definitely no political benefit waiting for him at the end. Family had also become a major theme for the current administration. JD has talked about endlessly America's declining birth rate and encouraging people to have children. And in July, he and Asha welcomed their fourth while serving as vice president. That's the first child born to a sitting VP in more than 150 years. Then you have the policy side. The working families' tax cuts increased and permanently extended the child tax credit, making part of the adoption tax credit refundable, and created Trump accounts with a $1,000 government contribution for eligible newborns. Melania also focused heavily on foster youth through her Fostering the Future initiative as well, with her office later helping create investment accounts aimed at giving those kids something to start with once they entered adulthood. So it's clear the focus on families goes beyond talking points, and we're seeing it reflected in actual policies that help Americans. That's why Markwayne getting emotional matters more than another politician standing behind a podium telling on how great Trump is. Presidents usually get remembered for the massive stuff, wars, elections, the economy, key legislation, and everything else historians, spend decades arguing about. But that's not what Mullin was talking about. He remembered a phone call from 6 years ago. Trump offering his plane wasn't going to win him an election or generate some amazing headline. That's the part worth remembering whenever politics turns people into cartoon characters. You can dislike Trump's policies, personality, or rhetoric, or all three. None of that suddenly disappears because of one emotional story. But neither should something like this be ignored simply because it doesn't fit the version of him the media sold for years. At the end of the day, politicians are still human beings. And sometimes the smaller moments tell you something that the carefully scripted speeches never will.